Hello, everybody, and welcome to Module 2. This is Dr. Weber. I hope you're having a fantastic week, and I hope you're excited to get into the camp portion of class. So we're going to talk about the different assignments and materials we have in Module 2 first. We have Coordinating an Adaptive Physical Activity Program. This is a video you're going to watch. This is going to help you understand what it's like to coordinate a full physical activity program for people with disabilities. Here's a CDC website. You're going to want to read and refer to this for your writing assignment, but also understand disabilities before going into the lesson planning assignment. And I'd like you to really go over all 14 of the major disabilities on the site. Discussion board post number 2, you will be reading and reviewing some materials as well as watching virtual camp. I will be posting these videos the day that I videotape. So I will be uploading the videos those days, and then you'll be able to reflect on those videos. As far as the lesson plan template, we're going to go in depth over the lesson plan assignment, and I'll take you through each of these individually to start. So the Creating an Adaptive Physical Activity Program is a video. Again, I'm going to allow you to watch this on your own time, and I do talk throughout the video, and this will give you a good idea of what it's like to have adaptive physical activity in our gym. So make sure that you watch that first. For the CDC disability website, I'm going to go over that with you because I don't have to worry about the video restrictions. As far as what a disability is, you should understand what a disability is. It's any condition of the body or mind impairment that makes it more difficult for the person with the condition to do certain activities. So any type of limitation with the world. Okay, it could be vision, movement, thinking, remembering, learning, communicating, hearing, mental health, and social relationships. Some of us know someone with a disability. For instance, for myself, my uncle, he has an intellectual disability, and he is in his 60s. He drives a car, and my dad takes care of him every single day. My dad takes care of my 90-year-old mother as well, his 90-year-old mother as well. So he's working with 2 people with disabilities every single day. And so you might be able to relate to this. You might know somebody with a disability. My whole life, I've had my uncle with a disability, and a lot of my friends would make fun of him, and I've had to really stick up for him and people with disabilities throughout my whole life. So that's where my passion came from. When it comes to working with people with disabilities. You may have heard of Down syndrome. Okay, Down syndrome is a condition which a person has extra chromosome. Okay, you probably have seen individuals with Down syndrome because their faces have some features that may include a flattened face, shortened neck, smaller ears, and about 6,000 people every year are born with Down syndrome. That means 1 in every 700 babies. That is one of the most common intellectual disabilities is Down syndrome. You have autism spectrum disorder. Individuals with autism have a developmental disability that can cause significant social communication behavioral challenges. There's a lot of research right now on autism, so that might be something you might be interested in for the writing assignment. For the writing assignment, you're going to have to choose a disability. So that's why I really want you to look over this site, click through the disabilities, and decide what disability you're leaning toward. So you have autism, cerebral palsy, ADHD, muscular dystrophy, fetal alcohol syndrome, spectrum disorders, Fragile X syndrome, hearing loss, intellectual disability. So my uncle has an intellectual disability, and you're going to get lots of facts about intellectual disability here. So is a term used when there are limits to a person's ability to learn at an expected level and function in daily life. So for instance, my uncle, he has a lot of childish behaviors. He likes to act pretty goofy sometimes, and we have a good time, but it's hard for him to have back and forth conversation with people that he doesn't know. He has trouble solving problems. He has trouble seeing the results of their actions. So for instance, he can get injured a lot because he just might not know that there might be rules to certain things. Have trouble understanding social rules, like I said, find it hard to remember things. So my dad always has to keep reminding him to eat. He actually has to make him meals because he won't eat if nobody feeds him. So individuals with intellectual disability, you know, might not be able to create their own meals or might not understand why it's important to eat. So you have to teach them to do those things. But one great thing about my uncle is that he, even though he has an intellectual disability, he is able to drive a car and he is able to go to and from work. And that's very rare in today's society. See, he grew up in a auto mechanic shop where my grandfather and my father worked. And so my uncle was just seen throughout his life to serve a purpose. And so he worked at the auto mechanic shop, and my dad, you know, taught him how to, you know, work on cars. So he knows a little bit about cars, but he works as a full-time dishwasher at a nursing home. So it's interesting because he works at a nursing home and my grandma is at her house, and my dad's really nervous that, you know, my uncle could come home with maybe COVID. And if that was passed to my grandma, who's 90, that would probably be pretty bad. So that's one of the things that you have to think about when you're working in a nursing home right now. And my uncle, he works in a nursing home, and my grandma, she lives at home. So it's a pretty dynamic situation. There's spina bifida, which is a spinal cord disorder where you're born with spinal cord that is a major birth defect. So most people who are born with spina bifida will not be able to use their legs or have limited use of their legs. I know many people with spina bifida that I've trained before in physical activity. We just do a lot of upper body movements. Individuals with cerebral palsy, okay, is a group of disorders that affects a person's ability to move and maintain balance. It's the most common motor disability in childhood, and estimates an average of 1 in 345 people in the United States have CP. So I'll be going over motor skills in my first lesson plan with you today. Okay, so go through the different disabilities. If you've never heard of Fragile X, or if you've never heard of Tourette's or traumatic brain injuries, I want you to click on these because you're going to be picking one of these out for your writing assignment and for your categorical YouTube or PowerPoint presentation. So make sure that you go over this site. Okay, after you go over the site and watch this video, you'll have a good understanding of people with disabilities and individuals with disabilities and adaptive physical activity programs. After you've understood those situations, you can begin your lesson planning. Okay, for your lesson planning, what you're going to do is use these lesson planning links, and you're going to create a lesson plan using this template. And I also have a sample lesson plan here. Okay, so we're going to go through the discussion board post number 2 before we go into the lesson plan. And what I'd like you to know is that, like I said before, is we're going to create a adapted virtual camp, and you can be involved and you can come Monday, May 25th. If you signed up for camp already, I'll be sending you an email May 25th with Zoom login information. So I'll send you emails before camp starts. And so I'll have links during this week, and they'll be going up. And after the week on May 30th, I want you to start your discussion. So I don't want you to start your discussion board post until all these videos have been posted. So I'd like you to complete your discussion board posts on that Sunday, and your lesson plan, you can probably start a lot sooner than that. You probably want to start your lesson plan as soon as possible, okay? So for the discussion board post, you're going to share your biggest takeaways from reading materials and lecture video for Module 2. So from this module video lecture that I taught you, so maybe you want to talk about, maybe you didn't know I had an uncle with an intellectual disability. You could talk about that. Maybe you have someone in your family with disability. You have a similarity. What did you learn and why is this important? How can this be applied to your future careers, whatever you might be doing? Share your biggest takeaway from at least 2 of the camp videos that you watch. So I'm gonna be asking you to watch at least 2 of these camp videos. You don't have to watch the whole thing, but just watch some parts. What was one effective teaching strategy you might apply in the future? So if you saw me use a teaching skill or a prompt, how might you use that in the future, and then tell the class something interesting about yourself. So this is more self-centered, and tell the class your favorite movie, food, and holiday, okay? Then I would like you to comment at least one other classmate's post and reply, if possible, to at least one comment. So you can comment throughout the week after, and these will be open the entire semester, okay? Add your bonus discussion points below if you were live in the Zoom chat. So if you were live in one of these classes, then you're just going to use these bullet points below. I've also talked about this in the syllabus, okay? For the lesson plan assignment, that's primarily what this Module 2 video is for, is to kind of help you through that. So as far as your lesson planning links, I have some links that will help you through your lesson planning. You might want to minimize this document or the screen like this, and what you could do is you could put it to like one side, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. So when you're creating your lesson plan, you'll be asked to use standards, you'll be asked to use assessments, and you'll have resources that I have provided. You'll have resources that other people have provided. So this is some resources from national sources, some applications, PE Central, and North Carolina. Okay, so you might be using this a lot when you're lesson planning, so just be mindful that you might have to minimize this. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the template. Go ahead and download the template. If you have issues related to the template and you need to modify or adapt it, that's fine, but hopefully everything should work out for you. So you'll enable editing, and you'll put your name here, the lesson, the unit, focus, content, grade level. I would like you to do any level, really, because obviously we're going to be working with people with disabilities, so I'd want you to think of something that anyone might be able to do. So I wouldn't want you to teach something like burpees or something like a resistance band push, because not everyone might have those resistance bands. Okay, so think body weight exercises, dancing. You can make up some dumbbell exercises if you'd like, and tell them to use different exercise pieces of equipment. You're going to have a lesson overview. You're going to have different student learning outcomes. You're going to talk about what skills they're going to be learning. So what thinking skills are they going to learn? What social skills are they going to learn? What physical skills are they going to learn? We call that psychomotor, affective, and cognitive domains in physical education and health. So I'm just trying to define that for you. So what student learning outcomes might there be? Skills checklists and different assessments you can use. So you're going to describe the assessment that you're going to use, and then you're going to check any assessments that you've applied. National and state standards. Okay, so those state standards and national standards will be in your module folder, in your lesson links. So like I said before, you're going to want your lesson planning links probably out. So you'll see links here that say SHAPE, National PE Standards, and NC Essential Standards. So what you'll do is you'll click on the state standards, and you'll choose one of the standards for your lesson plan. And then you're just going to copy and paste that into your lesson plan. Okay. Same thing for this North Carolina state standards, but for this standard, you're going to find a clarifying objective. So you're going to find something on the right column to use in your lesson plan. Okay, and I'll show you how that works in a little bit. As far as where you're going to get resources from, HPE at Home is probably the best resource, because as the title implies, it's health and physical education at home. And so this set of files can be used at home for remote learning, and that's what I'm asking you to plan, is a remote learning lesson plan, okay? And so you can use any of these resources available. It can be cognitive activities, it can be physical activities. It just has to be health or fitness or physical education related. So if you'd like to teach nutrition, if you'd like to teach health, or any type of, like, maybe it's washing your hands for 10 minutes, you know, something like, you know, relevant to what you think applies to today's form of learning. And you can look through all these cool little sheets that they have, and they're just going to give you a lot of different workouts and different types of ideas that you can use for planning. Okay. The APE app, this is for teachers and educators. So this is going to give you ideas of what to use for adapted physical activity at home. It'll show something like fitness. It'll show something like rattle weightlifting. It shows an individual using upper body skills, wheelchair arm workout. Okay, so you could basically copy this entire routine and add this to your lesson plan. So I'm not asking you to create a lesson. I'm asking you to look at a lesson that's been created, or look at an idea that's been created, and then create a lesson plan around that, okay? Same thing here for PE Central. Let's just say you want to teach soccer skills. You look up soccer skills here, and then you look for some different types of activities, okay? Let's just say we're looking for basketball skills. Will come up. Okay, basketball, skills card, warm up, instant activity. Okay, grade level, materials needed, description. Here are the basketball skills. So here's 15 different skills you could use for your lesson plan. All right, equipment. This site is just going to take you to North Carolina DPI. It'll also show physical education here, adaptive physical education here at the top. You can click through those and you can check out the Adaptive Physical Education Advisory Council. If you want more information on adaptive physical education in North Carolina, we have a council here, and Ann Hughes is one of the board members who is serving as a New Hanover County adaptive physical education teacher here in our county. We have lots of different resources through these websites, so there's really no end to how much resources there are on these sites. Okay, so you can basically find anything you want, all these free assessments here on these sites that are provided in your lesson plan. Let me just X out here. Okay, you have your state standards and national standards. These are just going to help make sure that you are applying the approved standards or approved lessons from the state and national sources. Assessments. So when you prepare an assessment, if you've never heard of what assessments are, here's an article that teaches you what instructional assessments are for health and physical education. So if you've never heard the term assessment in physical and health education, then you're going to want to read this article. Formative assessments, such as mainly assessing for as learning. These assessments are done frequently with two purposes in mind: to gather information about students' learning performance and to guide teachers' future instruction. Okay, so assessments serve to help the teacher learn what the student is learning and then also set up future performance. We have example assessments here. So if you haven't heard about, if you don't know what assessments are, this whole document gives you samples of specific assessment tools. Okay, so you can basically create a whole lesson plan around an aerobic 12-minute run jog if you'd like. Okay, and you could go to that page. which is 23. Okay, and then you could use this assessment for the lesson plan. And then you create a lesson plan around that assessment. So it kind of works together. Here's a toolbox that I've created to give physical and health educators lots of resources. And I've kind of broken down, instead of you having to search, I've kind of created a column to the left, which talks about different yoga programs, dynamic movement. So let's just say you went to the 100 dynamic movements and you wanted to apply this to your lesson plan. You want to teach 10 movements for 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 10-minute lesson plan. This is what you would use, okay? And it might take a little bit to load, okay? It's got a lot of different exercises on it, but it has body weight exercises, it has dumbbell exercises, and that might be something that you might use. We have 37 kettlebell seated video. We have yoga, 200 yoga pictures. We have sports, handball, soccer, basketball, lots of different stuff in here. And then we also have the follow along at home fitness instructional videos. So this is going to be geared more toward the example lesson plan. So I've created almost 50 workouts that individuals can do at home. And then I've also added a whole sport curriculum. So if you wanted to take one of these videos and create a lesson plan from these videos, you can do that. Okay, so I encourage you to take one of these videos and create a lesson plan around it, or I encourage you to use the toolbox or the HPE at home website to find a lesson plan. And then again, what you're going to do is create a lesson. All right, so the lesson plan example I have shown here is one that I have created on a mobility training class. And this will kind of give you an idea of how you might plan your lesson. So I'm asking you to create a 10-minute lesson, 10, 15-minute, it can be 20 minutes, but it has to be at least 10 minutes. And for this lesson plan, I'm teaching mobility training. I have any level. Okay, this was done on the 18th. This is Unit 1, Lesson 1. Lesson overview, the student will learn how to move each of their major joints through their full range of motion safely. Utilizing the principles of progression, specificity, and progression, I will take students through a morning CARS routine. During this time, students will self-assess, and if they are with a peer, the peer can assess their ranges of motion. During the instruction, the teacher will give specific feedback to each student if possible and emphasize control, strength, and range. So this is a mobility training class. The lesson overview is that they're going to be performing the morning CARS routine. So student learning outcomes, thinking skills. Student will be able to identify major parts of the body such as the neck, upper spine, and wrists. Students will be able to understand the difference between mobility and flexibility. Affective skills, the student will be able to provide feedback to the instructor and to be respectful in the Zoom classroom, encourage others in the Zoom chat. So we want to encourage positive social skills and positive interaction. So that's what the affective domain. And for the psychomotor domain or physical skills, which is mainly what we're doing, is physical skills. But we do want to know that they're having a good time, and we want to know that they're learning. The student will be able to move each of their 11 major joints through their full ranges of motion. So that's the goal. Assessment, students will self-assess their own range of motion or have a peer assess their range of motion. Students or the peer will rate each of the 11 major joints through a log entry. A visual observation from the instructor will provide feedback to students. After the lesson, students are encouraged to write in their journal about their experience or record their voice. Okay, so the students are going to be going through their 11 major joints through a full range of motion joint assessment checklist. Okay, looks like we have, these are the different types of assessments I'm using. So that's where I X'd and I crossed out what I wasn't using. And I'm going to talk more about the assessment when I get all the way down to the bottom. So national standard number 1, the physically literate individual demonstrates competency in a variety of motor skills and movement pathways. So where did I find that? That should be in the lesson planning links. So all I did was I went to the SHAPE national standards, clicked on that site, just copied that, and I just put that in my template. Okay. So I would just copy and paste that right in there. And then for the state objective, I would do the same thing. I go to my lesson planning links, NC Essential Standards, click here. And all I'm going to look for is a clarifying objective that matches my lesson plan. Okay, and then I'm going to copy and paste that into my lesson plan. For the introduction of the lesson, what's up, everybody? I am Jordan Weber, and today we're going to perform a controlled articular rotations or your morning cars routine. So obviously I've changed it to calling it morning cars routine instead of controlled articular rotations, because the morning cars routine might sound a little bit easier to manage for the students. So after we've introduced the lesson, I want to kind of give maybe a rationale of why we're performing the routine, talk about why it's important to start, and then as I describe the sequence of activities, I have the time on the left column, description, cues, and adaptations in this second column, and then reps and effort, or just reps in the third column, and picture, symbol, or diagram on the column on the end. And so what I'm going to do is for each activity, for instance, this is mobility training. I'm taking each 11 major joint through their full range of motion. And as you see, I'm going to take each major joint through its full range of motion. And that's the 10-minute activity. Okay. I'm going to give a description. So for the neck, squeeze the fist and keep the body tight as you flex, rotate, bend, extend, rotate, and flex the forward, and flex the forward, which should be flex the neck forward. So I'll go ahead and fix that real quick. But what I'm doing here is I'm taking each descriptive cue and adaptation of the neck into consideration. So Q or a C would be draw a circle with your chin. Okay, I put a C there for cues. And then A would be an adaptation, and I have a progression and a regression. So progress by laying on the stomach, so you could perform the stomach, and that would be harder, and then regress by making smaller circles. So if you're not able to make big circles with your neck, just make smaller circles. So that would be a regression. So you're gonna see I've analyzed and described each skill that I'm teaching through my own type of language, and then I add a cue that I'm going to teach to the student, and then I have two options for making it harder or making it easier. And you'll see that throughout each one. So for the scapula, description, cues, adaptation, wrist, elbow, same thing, thoracic spine, hip, knee, patella, ankle, and toes. So this would be an example of taking somebody through a full body or full body morning cars routine. Okay, and you could do yoga, you could do functional range conditioning, you can do body weight fitness, you could do dumbbell fitness. So then you're going to have a closure and discussion after class is complete. Ask students if they have questions. Based off of the questions, create a dialogue. After discussion, close the class by reviewing each body part they moved, and then challenge the students to perform this every day when they wake up in the morning. Create a daily log checkoff box to keep track of days you have completed your CARs or controlled articular rotations. You'll write in your references where you got this information from. So you might get it from HPE Home, you might get it from PE Central, you might get it from one of my websites, and then link to YouTube video. So this is going to be optional. you can create a YouTube video and I will give you an extra 5 points, but that will be optional, okay? So you do not have to create a YouTube video. Then you're gonna attach an assessment for this lesson plan below. And here is the assessment that I've attached. I'm gonna rate each joint and reflect on each joint after complete. 1, pain and discomfort when moving. 2, some tightness and some compensation. And 3, full range of motion without compensation. So basically taking each body part through its full range of motion, and we're gonna assess each of those joints through a rating scale, and then also write in any notes. Was there pain? Were you able to control it? Did it hurt or anything like that? And then you have a Morning Cars routine checklist that I would like everyone in the class after they perform this perform every single day. And so they can check off every day that they do it. And the goal is for them to be able to fill this in without missing a day. And if they're able to do that, then I would give them a prize. Okay, so this would be an example of some authentic assessments used in health and fitness. Okay, also using some standardized lesson plans. All right, so make sure that you check out the lesson planning links. They're going to give you a lot of ideas. As far as how to put in those pictures, that's one thing I should probably go over. So as far as how you put in a picture, what you can do is, let's just say you can't find a picture that you're looking for. You can always look online. So I could look for, I might even look for neck circles. Let's just see what happens. Okay. Go like that. So let's just say you can take a picture of your screen. You can also use a symbol or a diagram just like that. Okay. And I might even do the same thing for here. If I didn't have pictures of myself doing it. It could just be a symbol, so I could just find a symbol that matches what I'm having them do. It could look something like that. That makes sense. So I'd like you to put in a picture or a diagram or a symbol of what you're having them learn. And then I also have a column for reps and effort. 2 reps each way, 30% effort. Okay, so it's not, you don't want them 100% effort. You don't want them 0% effort, but I want them giving at least 30% effort, meaning that they're squeezing their body 30% effort the whole time. Okay, if they're squeezing their body 100% effort, they wouldn't be able to move. So I wouldn't want that, and I don't want 0% effort because then they're not able to control their ranges. Okay, so that's how I planned a mobility lesson plan. Okay, if you have specific questions on what you might want to teach, how you're going to go about planning, I can always help you through that. Make sure that you look at the lesson plan rubric. Lesson plan rubric will help you through getting a good grade. So you want to have student learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are relevant and appropriate for students. Okay. Standards, both national and state standards, are applied and are applicable to the lesson plan. Assessment is properly formulated, matches the lesson plan description, and encourages learning. Sequence of activities and length. Sequence is easy to follow and appropriate for all level learners. Activities at least 10 minutes in length. And then closure, teacher checks for understanding and is concerned about the growth of their students. So you should have a closure, reflection at the end of your lesson plan. So that's the criteria for your lesson plan. Okay. Remember, if you create a YouTube video along with your lesson plan, you will get 5 extra credit points for that. So as you see, if you look at the example, if you create a lesson YouTube video along with your lesson, I will give you 5 points extra credit. So here you see I'm performing the controlled articular rotations, morning mobility routine. It's very simple. It's for any age, any level, and that's why I like to teach it in adaptive physical activity settings, because it really allows the learner to learn how to move their entire body, okay? And as I show you here, I kind of give you some discussion points after. All right, so if you want to create a 10-minute mobility routine or a lesson, that would be great. And if you do create a video, that video might be distributed to our mentees for camp. And so if you create a good video, I might use that, and I might send that out to camp goers, and it'll give you practice in case you would like to teach for camp this summer. So you'll get extra credit for that as well. If you teach camp and you teach through your webcam and you use the lesson that you taught or that you used in this class, then you're going to get a lot of extra credit points. So that'll go a long way if you're able to plan a lesson, not only plan a lesson, but create a YouTube. And after creating YouTube, you'll have experience teaching. And after experience teaching, you'll be very confident in teaching online. So that's my goal, okay? Not all of you will be able to get that to that level, but I encourage you to strive to get to that level, okay? So let me just make sure here, okay? So everything looks all set. If you have questions about the lesson plan or the discussion board posts or any of the materials in Module 2, just email me. And other than that, I hope you have a nice day and look forward to seeing you in camp. Thanks a lot.